In this portion of the Steve and the Alien Anime Studio tutorial series, we'll be focusing on the van as it veers off the road, hits this rock, and goes flying into the air, eventually tumbling onto the ground, and then you find it at the mercy of the UFO. So first, be sure that you open up the shot that we designed a few lessons ago, where you have just the ground and the rock. And of course, you have your mountains and stuff in the background. Before we go on any further, be sure you go to File and Save As, and then make a new name for this document. That way you'll have a backup as well as the new document, so we can move forward with that. Now, before we go any further, I just want to point out that for this, I've already extended my mountain range out as well as my ground. I've actually extended it out quite a ways, so I have room to work with here. So if you don't have your assets extended that far out, I advise that you do, because we'll soon be needing a lot of that room as the van will be flying through the air and we'll have the camera moving along with it. Let's import the UFO along with the van. So go to File, Import, Anime Studio Object, go back to our files here, and grab the props folder, and I'll get my van first. And in this case, I want the side angle of the van. And then we have it right here. And I will now do the same for the UFO. So File, Import, Anime Studio Object. What I'll do is I'm actually going to grab the UFO from when I animated out the side angle of the UFO chasing the van, because I put a shadow on the UFO in that shot. So to save some time, I'll just grab that UFO that has the shadow. So we were looking at this shot right here with the UFO, and it has the shadow, which is what we want. Now, the UFO won't come into play for a little while. In fact, what I could do is double-click on the UFO layer, enable animated layer effects, and just turn that invisible so we don't have to worry about it until later on in the animation. As far as the van, we need to do a couple of things here. We need to resize it and make it bigger. So clicking on the van, I'll take my scale layer tool and just blow it up like this. And then rotate it by using the rotate layer tool. And just make sure that we're fairly lined up with how the ground is angled, which it looks like we are. So now we'll have the van come in, it hits the rock, and it's going to flip over, and then it's going to land, it's going to do 2 more flips, and then eventually settle on the ground. So we'll bring the van back here, and we'll go to frame 1 and insert a keyframe just by clicking on the screen with our translate layer tool. And then we'll have the van come driving in at about frame 16. And then we can actually turn this keyframe to linear as well. So it comes in, now it's going to hit the rock. So this will cause the van to fly through the air. So we'll go to about frame 26 and just move the van up like this. And now I will take the rotate layer tool, and actually I'll insert the rotate layer keyframe right before we hit the rock. So at frame 16, and then we're going to go up to frame 26, and then we will rotate the van like this. So you'll see now it hits the rock and goes like that. And actually I can probably even extend this out a little more and up. So just boom, like that. And now we'll advance forward a few more frames to, let's say, about frame 36. And we will move this forward even more. And we'll rotate it like so. So it's about like that. So we have the van boom and it's flying, and we can even lower it a little bit and just move it like that. And then advancing forward to about, let's say, frame 45, we'll have the van rotate to about this angle and land like so. So it comes up, gets hit, lands, and now it's going to start the tumble on the ground. So we'll advance forward to about, let's say, frame 54. We can go like this, as well as keep the van moving. So it hits and then goes like that. And then we'll go to about frame 63. And then take the rotate tool and move it up like so. And we'll also keep it moving, of course, but we'll raise it up a bit because it's essentially right now bouncing off the ground a little bit. So we'll have it like there. And then advance forward to about frame 72. Actually, we'll go just a little bit more to about frame 75 because we want to start spreading the keyframes out now as we want the van to start slowing down as it's tumbling. So at about that frame, we'll then insert another rotation, about like this. It'll come down like that. So boom, boom, boom. Now we'll go to about frame 96. And then rotate about like this. And we'll drag this down like this. So right now it's starting to slide. It's tumbled. And it's now coming to the point where it's going to be sliding down the hill because it's no longer tumbling. And now the van can keep moving to about 144. So it can go like this. And in between that, we can have the van tilt up a bit. So at 120, we can use the rotate tool and tilt it up a bit as if like the momentum is still carrying it to rotate a bit. Like so. And then it just kind of settles back then right here. And that will end the van's journey as far as our animation is concerned. So next, let's go back to the beginning and we can add in some details. We'll add in some dust as well as the rock that the van hit can start the roll. And we can also add in some dirt being kicked up as the van is hitting the ground. So I'll snap back here to the beginning. I can just reverse this. And starting with the rock, I'll just click on the boulder layer and just zoom in here. In the boulder, we can start to move slightly at about frame 16 when the van hits. So we can just insert a keyframe for the translate layer tool, as well as the rotate tool like that. And then the van goes flying. And we can have just a couple seconds in, we can just show the boulder moving like this slightly. By this point, the van's going to be way off screen, and we're going to be focusing in on the van itself. So the camera will be over there. You probably won't even see the boulder after a really split second of animation, but at least it's there. We have that whole thing set in motion. Now we can add some dust to like when we hit the boulder and when the van hits the ground. So first, let's go back to frame 0 and create a few, about 3 layers of dust. So make a new layer and we can name this dust 1. And I can just draw them out right here. I'll take the add point tool and make sure sharp corners is turned off. And we'll draw a stroke color of a light brown, as well as a lightish brown fill color. And then starting right about here, I can just go like that. And then fill it in. So that will be one of our dust clouds. And I can make another one. Just name it Dust 2. And just the same thing, except I'll just try to make a slightly different looking dust cloud. Like that, and then fill it in. And then we'll do one more. Oops, not 34, but 3. And there we go. So now we have the dust clouds that we can use. We'll probably hide these for now so that we can use them when we need them and they can stay out of sight. So I'll double click on the first dust cloud layer and allow animated layer effects and choose visible, or deselect visible rather, and click OK. And do the same for the other two. So now, when our van comes here and hits the rock, we'll want one of the dust clouds to appear. So we will choose dust cloud 1 and just make it visible. And then we can bring it over like this. And then all we have to do from here is just animate the dust cloud up. We can go in about up to frame 30, let's say, and just go up. And let's also make sure that on the start frame, when this appears, we put a scale layer keyframe in there as well, just by clicking on it with the scale layer tool. And then at frame 30, we can blow up the dust cloud and then just bring it in like that. Okay. And finally, we can just double click on that cloud and choose the opacity to be 0 at frame 30 so that it'll disappear as it goes up into the air. And then we'll continue on here. And then right when we hit about here, we'll want another dust cloud. So I'll double click on dust cloud 2 and make it visible. And then we'll just bring it in like that. And I can bring the dust cloud 2 above the van. So then we'll have that go up for a few frames, but first we'll make sure we insert a keyframe for the scale. And then we can go up at about frame 66, and then just increase the size of the dust cloud and bring it back like that. And then double click on that dust cloud and change the opacity to 0 and click OK. There we go. And then, so we have it hit there, and we have it also hit here. So we have a couple of places where it hits. So we might want to add the third dust cloud right about here. And actually looking at this, I also might want to just move my van up slightly so that it's in line with how it hit here to here. There we go. Anyway, we'll have the third dust cloud appear here. So we'll just take that third dust cloud and double click and make it visible. And of course, bring it down like this. And we will bring it above the van as well. And click it with the scale tool to ensure that we have the scale intact. And then we can just move it up at around frame 74 and then enlarge it. like so. And then, of course, on that final frame, double click and change the opacity to 0. Okay, now it's time to add in the dirt marks for the van. We'll do this when the van hits the ground as well as slides. And this is going to be similar to the technique we used when we added the scorch marks to the UFO in the previous lesson. So first, we need to make a new layer. We'll put it above the ground layer, and we will need to go back to frame 0 to do this. And we can name it Dirt. Now, like before, we need to go to Edit, Preferences, and choose to disable the Enable Drawing Tools only on frame 0. So now, we can zoom in here and grab the freehand tool. Make sure that autofill is deselected, and we can turn the stroke to a color of brown. About like that. Okay, so now we have the van come in, it gets hit, and now it's going to hit the ground right here. So we want one of the dirt marks to appear there. So we can just scribble in a mark. And then we have what hit here, so we can scribble in another mark. And then right here, so we'll have yet another mark. And now we'll add marks, I should say, as the van starts to slide right here. Okay, so if we just click on the van side, and we just can kind of see how this plays out, especially when it slides, you can see that it just brings in that dirt as it's happening. Also, when we hit boom, boom, and boom, I might actually want to add another dust cloud right here, actually, now that I think about it. So what I can do, I can just recycle one of the dust clouds. I can bring in dust cloud 1 again. What I'll do is, on the previous frame, before it's needed there, I can come over here and click on that dust cloud. And then, when we hit the ground, I can just bring the dust cloud in over here. And I can shrink it as well, so that it's smaller. And then, of course, go into the layer here and bring the opacity back to 100. And then we can just have it fly up. So about there, we'll just have it fly up. Increase, and go like that. Double click on that end frame and put it to 0. There we go. We now have the van slide and then come to an end. So now let's import the alien. We could have done that at the beginning of the lesson, but it kind of slipped my mind. So let's import the alien in here now at frame 0, because we're going to animate him falling out of the van, because the back doors are open. Things are a little bit turbulent right now, and so the van will eject the alien. Let's go to File, Import, Anime Studio Object, and I will grab the alien from the alien shoot tutorial I did, because we already have him all mapped out as far as how he looks and how he's holding the gun and all that. I'll have to bring in the van back group layer for this, and then on the layers panel, simply drag him out onto the main layers box, and then just delete that van back layer. So now let's double click on the alien and we can hide him until we need him. So we'll hide him right now. And then we'll also want to click on the alien layer. Make sure you are on the alien layer for this, and go to Animation, Clear Animation from Layer, and hit Yes. This will now remove all the animation from the alien, but we can now focus in on animating him ourselves, because we don't need any of his existing animations. We just need the structure set up. So we have the van hit the rock and it goes flying. And now looking at this, I may want to click on the boulder and stop it from moving so far over like it is. So I may just move it back like this. So it'll just start going a little bit of ways. And also looking at this, I may want to have the van go up a little bit when it flies to the air. So boom, it flies, and then it hits and it starts rolling. So that may be the best way to approach this, so we can eject the character. So about like that. Okay. So at about frame, let's say 38 on my document, I want the alien to fall out, because that's the perfect escape route for him to exit from, because the van is tilted in such a way where he would probably fall out. He'd probably fall out right about here too, but let's just say he's holding on, and then he can fall out right about here. So now, at that point, let's double click on the alien and make him visible. And we can also probably do away with the muzzle flash as well. Or we could just hide it, but I'll just delete it. So I'll click on the muzzle flash in the gun layer that's in the alien and remove it. That way we don't have to worry about the muzzle flash going off as he is falling. So now we can take the alien by clicking on his layer, and using the translate layer tool, we can just move him over like this. And then we can also rotate him with that rotate tool like so. And we can have him poke out and fall this way. So we'll probably have his fall go pretty quick. It'll probably last about 6 or 7 frames. And then he just falls out like so. And then we can, of course, adjust his rotate as that happens. Okay. And we can also have his arms and legs moving about as this happens. So at the start of this whole thing, we can take the Manipulate Bones tool and have his gun out like this, maybe his hand up like that, and then we can extend his legs out like that, and then as he falls, maybe his gun goes up like that, and we put his hand out like that, and I gotta switch his hand on in just 1 second here, and then he hits the ground. Like so. So what I'll do here is hide the van for 1 second, and then go into my alien, and then right click on the other hand switch layer, which is down here, and choose hand. That way we bring the hand in, and he can fall and land. So now we have the alien doing that. And what we need to really do last here, two more things, in fact, is we got to do the camera work, and then we just got to do the end with the UFO hovering over the van. So we can page back here to the first frame, and we can also bring the van back into view here. So then what we need to do is have the van follow we need to have the camera follow the van. So the van hits the rock and it goes flying right about here. And this is where we can probably start the camera pan. So I can click track camera and click on that to insert a keyframe. And I'll also do the same for zoom because we'll be zooming in here momentarily. And then we have the van fly out like this. So we can just take the camera and zoom in, or pan up, I should say. And we could actually maybe zoom out a bit too so we can see the ground and what's going on here. So hits. Then we zoom in like this. Actually, I don't really like that zoom out now that I look at it. So I'll just make sure I zoom in instead. We don't have to see the ground for that portion. The alien is ejected. And then we're going to continue to follow the van. Okay, a couple more tweaks here. We can't really see the ground right here when the van's hitting down, so I'll actually just zoom out a little bit more. Like that. And just move up like that. Oops, we still need a little bit more room. There we go. Just like that. And looking at this too, I might have the alien fly forward a little bit more because the straight drop actually doesn't make much sense now that I look at that. So I'll just grab the alien layer, and when he drops, I'll just make sure I move him over like this. And that'll work. Okay. We'll have the van sit in its position for about a second. So at about 168, we'll add in some keyframes for our camera, move and zoom. And at 180, we'll do a quick zoom out. And then move this down. So it'll kind of go like that. And then we will see the UFO then come in and hover over the van. So we have the van there, and we're now at frame 180, and now we can double click on the UFO layer and make that visible. And then we can enlarge the UFO as well. I'll just bring him over like this. And we want him to be pretty big. So then we just have the UFO from frame 180, then come in, let's say at 198, like so. And it might be a little bit too fast, so we'll extend that maybe to about 216. So then the UFO comes in, and then it will hover over the van, ready to do whatever it's about to do. And that is pretty much all there is to it. And I know the shadow might look a little bit lame right here, but it's actually going to be transparent, or it's going to have a transparency effect to it when we render this out, because that's how the shadow is set. And you could also, too, if you wish, when the van hovers over, you could change the color of the van to something darker to indicate that a shadow has overcome the van as well. So those are some things you can play with on your own. And I think this looks pretty good. I'll play it out one more time just to make sure that everything that I needed to do is here. So we'll play it. The van gets hit. We have the zoom. Sits. We have the zoom out, and then we have the UFO come into play. I still think the UFO kind of comes in a little bit too fast when I watch that. So maybe I'll extend this out even further, his move-in time. So I'll just move all these keyframes over. There we go. It's a little bit more. Even maybe a little bit more. There we go. I kind of like it going slower, because then it's kind of gives an uh-oh feeling to what's about to happen. And I can now extend the timeline if I need to out to, I need to extend it out to 336. So when I render this out, it renders out the whole thing of the alien hovering over the van. And it's good to have, I think, that extended shot of just the hovering, because we'll even be using that for the end of this animation. We'll cut back to this and showing the alien spacecraft hovering over the van. So I think it's good to have that. Now I need to make a couple edits. Just as I was going through, I noticed that I made a couple of mistakes. If we go back to frame 0 and we page through, you'll notice that as I do this, that the cloud, the first cloud that comes up, that we bring forward as the fourth cloud when the van is rolling, actually doesn't do its whole animation. It actually kind of goes back into the background, and then you'll notice that it sort of just hangs out there and gets smaller, 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 and then it appears right here. All I have to do here is select the dust cloud, and we can see it animate up and disappear. And what we'll do now at that point is double click and just make it invisible after it leaves. So then we won't have such a problem with it not disappearing or reappearing on the stage and all that. And finally, I noticed that my clouds, there's only 3 clouds. So as we do this, and as the movement goes, you'll see that the sky becomes pretty cloudless pretty quickly. So we can populate the sky with some more clouds. And to do this, we just click on that layer, and we can highlight all those clouds and edit and copy, and we can paste them around, and we can adjust them, we can move them around, we can do different things like that, just to give off the illusion that there are, of course, more clouds in the sky than just the ones that we were showing there, 3 in the sky. So you can just do this a few times to kind of get your clouds populated in the sky. Just like that. And you might want to spend a little bit more time adding more detail to them. But if I look here, it looks a little bit better. I think I'll add a few more at the end of this. Just like that. So then we'll see that the clouds stick with us the entire time. And then we have a zoom out. And even when we zoom out, we may want to add some clouds above as well. I can even flip these vertically just to give them a different look. and horizontally. And again, you may want to spend more time with this so that the clouds don't look so cookie cutter when it comes to this whole animation. But that'll work. That will do it. Okay. Anyway, that wraps up this lesson. Be sure you go to File and Save so that you save all your hard work. And also be sure to go to File and Export Animation and export out a video. And then you can watch this and make any tweaks if you see any need to do that. And then you can save that video for when we edit the project together. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.